It's good to see everybody here celebrating Kim's life. I'm finding it harder in my older years when I'm a little sad, when I'm uncomfortable, and when I find myself saying, what in the world is going on? I'm directed by those who are a little bit wiser than myself to look at the Bible. Although Kim was an old pro at this, finding the answers, knowing exactly the Bible verse to soothe the pain, taking her immediate cares and concerns straight to the Lord. Sometimes I look at this book and I think to myself, where in the world do I begin? Even though I'm sure Kim is up in heaven, talking the Lord's ear off and busying herself with making new friends and getting to know the place, she took a moment out of her busy day to send me a message and to give me a nudge. And I could clearly hear her sweet voice say, "Hey Blair, take a moment and wipe those tears from your face. Put a smile on and just of the woman that God taught me to be." Everyone, today I'll be reading from Proverbs 31. Today I'm going to begin with verse 10, if you want to walk through the verses with me. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. Verses 10 through 12 talk about an amazing, godly woman, a woman focused and dedicated. In fact, she is so good that her husband can find no wrong. He trusts her. He would never harm her. Now let's think back, Mark. I know I saw you hand over the checkbook to her at least 3 or 4 times. That's a little bit of trust, wouldn't you say? It was remembering that number down that Kim often forgot to do. Finding it ever so difficult to get angry at her innocent, Mark recalls how Kim would say, "Mark, you're crazy." And his reply, always the same, was crazy in love with you. This scripture also implies that a good woman is hard to find. Not for Mark McNabb. He spotted Kim at church during youth, and the rest is history. Mark has joked that I found religion when I spotted Kim McNabb, Kimberly Green. Mark and Kim were married April the 20th, 1991. Kim was enough for Mark. She satisfied him with her love, her laughter. She was the breath of life. An amazing woman, an amazing wife. Verse 13, she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. In verse 13 it says that a godly woman cares for wool and flax and works with eager hands. But I don't know if Kim knew what flax was. But there have been many times when we've seen Kim take it from the car to Turtle Creek when she heard that wool sweaters were going half price. Kim knew her job as a mother and a housewife was God-given. Kim thought that keeping the house in order was somewhat hopeless, she would say. Clean only happens for a moment, so what's the use? Kim was known for saying, "Leave the dishes, take it to the park." Mark has said many times, "I'm not sure where the kids are. I don't know where Kim is. The house is a wreck. You might want to check Baskin-Robbins, or you can probably try the Y." Kim's work might have gone unnoticed in a spotless home, but her hands were always dirty with playing with the kids. No, Kim didn't have to go to work every morning. Her work was brought straight to her every day. Verse 14, she is like the merchant ships bringing her from far. Well, I don't think Kim knew much about ships or boats for that matter, but when it all came to feeding her family and getting fruit from afar, she would drive all over town, didn't matter how far it was. But she would go the distance to find the restaurant that had kids eat free night. The McNabb kitchen is the gathering place. You always knew you were going to be fed with a buffet of love. Verse 15, she gets up while it's still dark. She provides food for her family. Girls. Kim was an early riser. You could find her at the Trim Gym on most mornings doing step aerobics, followed by her smoothie and her bagel. While training for a marathon, some mornings, Kim would leave the house. Even when it was still dark, Mark and the kids were still asleep. I think she did leave a box of Pop-Tarts out on the counter, and maybe even a box of cereal. Verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. And loved to gaze out her window at all of God's beauty. She loved to plant and water and weed and care for nature. She had some of the most oldest and most beautiful magnolia trees in her yard that I'd ever seen. She loved flowers and bushes and grass. In fact, she was so knowledgeable that I think she knew all the names of the employees at Bennett's Nursery. Kim loved her roses too. She had beautiful roses and was asked many times, how do you do it? How do you get those roses so beautiful? She'd say, just water them. But needless did we know that Susie was helping out with that watering. That's why. And Susie will keep the watering going, just a little bit more fertilizer. 17, she sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. Now this might be getting a little personal, but have you ever seen Kim's biceps? I mean, carrying those 4 has got to be as good as 20 sets of curls and a half a dozen shoulder presses, wouldn't you think? That's vigorous. She could have those kids popped up on her hip, grab her purse, her car keys, and a Diet Coke, and she was out the door. Verse 18 and 19. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. A spindle. Do I even know what it is? Rumpelstiltskin is the only thing I can think of when I think of a spindle. And I know that in that house, she must have read that book many times to her children. Verse 20, she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. There once was a homeless man by the name Donnie Ray who stumbled upon the McNabb house one day. Asking for work in exchange for cash, he felt this was his own. Kim opened up her heart. She extended her hand and never gave him a judgmental glance. Finding comfort and peace in the garage corner space, she gave him a seat at church so that he might see Jesus' face. To know Kim was to love Kim in every way. And in all seriousness, Kim had a heart bigger than this entire church. And giving, like most of us can only dream to be. She gave of her time, her energy, even when she didn't even have enough to keep her own self going. The needs of others, especially those of her husband and her beautiful 4 children, were always put before her own. She was a generous and selfless woman. Verse 21 and 22. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Kim gave the best of what she had to the ones she loved. She feared nothing for her family because she knew that she had prepared a place for them. A place of love, security, honesty, and hope. Kim may not have used finest linens when decorating her home, but the decorations of love and care hung in every room